ba 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 ba. She says some things too.
What do you think of that? It's finally October. As you can see, I'm super excited to break out the dark lipstick. Thanks for joining me today for Hey y'all. Thanks for joining me today for a one-woman book club. Today's book is Said the Manic to the Muse. I thought it was upside down because she's upside down. By Jean Ann Verlee. Jean Ann is one of my favorite poets, and she just has this way with words that's just magical. And if you've ever heard the word visceral, which I hadn't heard until I read a review of one of her poems, all of her poetry is so visceral. It's just astounding. It makes you feel something, and it's just very eerie. So it's a good book for October. In chapbooks where every single poem, or almost every single poem, is dedicated to someone. So that was very interesting because I felt like I was still included, but there was a lot more depth and a lot more story than I was ever gonna get. So that was kind of another dimension that was interesting to me. She's just very honest. All of the poets that I really love and admire risk something. And Jean Ann Verlee is a poet that risks something every time she puts a word on a page. So this is actually her second book. Her first one's called Racing Hummingbirds, and I don't know why I didn't buy that one, but this one the title was very interesting to me. Jean Ann Verlee talks a lot about depression and bipolar disorder and divorce and miscarriages, and since one of her recurring themes is bipolar disorder, Said the Manic to the Muse makes sense because mania is part of bipolar disorder. So I actually thought that this would all be about mental illness, which in a way it kind of is, but it's broken up into 3 sections. She cycles through this feeling of loneliness in a really interesting way. Most of the poems in the first section have to do with miscarriage and then the dissolution of marriage afterwards. And as someone who's never gone through that, it still made me feel something. And I just think she's a very talented poet. All of part 2 is about betrayal and loneliness and trying to find people that you can trust. And there's a lot of writing about where she comes from, actually. So things that will come back to haunt her in a way. So a lot of talking about her mom and where she grew up, and she always talks about a girl with too much fist, how she just learned how to fight growing up, and how that kind of limits her interactions with people now. One thing that surprised me about this book is that a lot of the poems are after other people or dedicated to other people, and it's not that they don't stand on their own, it's just the title will have underneath it for this person or after this person, and that was really surprising to me, and I'm not sure if it's a poetry sequel kind of thing or just specific to this book or specific to this poet, but I don't really see that too often. In the third part, I feel like the mental illness kind of theme shows its face a little more. So she's talking about insomnia, and she says the mania speaks at one part. There's a poem called Hereditary, there's a poem called Manic, and there's one actually that was really interesting. It says, finally I allow him the pen. And it's kind of a love poem, and it was really beautiful to read, and it's all so beautiful to read. And then at the end, poem to translate the poems just messes me up because she basically gives you a key to all of the imagery inside and all of the feelings. Like, if you didn't get it before I leave you, let me let you know this is what I'm talking about. And it's very dark. She does talk about death. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of violence. Animals die. In the imagery, not in real life, I'm hoping. Honestly, I feel like I've come away from it able to be a better writer. So if you're interested in reading poetry, interested in writing poetry, I recommend any of Jean Ann Verlee's work. She also has a poem called and/or, that's just a very interesting thought experiment, and I would recommend that too. But again, Said the Manic to the Muse. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. I love it so much, and I'm so happy I read it. I actually had to sit down and read it in 2 parts not because it was overwhelming, because I started reading it pretty late, and so I was like, okay, you know what, that's enough sad right now. I'm gonna go to sleep now, and then I'm gonna read some more a different day. I mean, you can read it in one sitting, but I feel like her work is so thick with meaning that you really need to digest it, or at least I do, and so I don't really mind taking that much time to read her poetry. That's all for today. Again, send the Manic to the Muse. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed One Woman Book Club, and I'll be back with another book eventually. See you around. Okay, now bye. For real. Bye. Bye. No need hang up. Jinan, if you ever see this, I'm so sorry for butchering your beautiful work with my analyses, and I love your work, and you're so cool and great, and thank you for this. That's my nerd out.